There is no such thing as a perfect vintage sewing book. Now wait, before you click away because you think, my, that's a mighty bold statement, Stephanie. Let me explain. Sewing books have been a way to capture information since about the early 1880s, when these books were primarily a way to create the patterns inside and give a few helpful tips along the way. There were also periodicals of the time that would also give helpful tips and tricks, as well as knitting techniques and just general fashions of the era as well. However, as you go through the early 1900s and especially into the 1940s and 1950s of the do-it-yourself era, you start to see them get more and more detailed as we go along. All the way up until modern day, where the books are pretty self-explanatory, going into very specific detail on every stitch and finish due to the lack of prior teaching and available home economics courses in modern schooling. Now, while modern day sewing books really do cater to modern audiences, what about vintage sewing books? What about them makes them better, big air quotes, for the vintage sewist? Each book brings something different to the table. Whether you're looking for a complete compendium like Better Dressmaking from 1951 from Ruth Wythe Spears, or maybe you want a highly detailed focus book with really couture finishes but kind of explained at a beginner level, you want to look at the Vogue Dressmaking book. I personally have the one from 1953, which I enjoy, or maybe you're just really confused about how to use that interfacing correctly. Not saying that's been me before. Shady. So you really want to start with maybe Home Sewing Made Easy with Pellon, if you can get rid of the really terrible imagery at the very first page of the tight-lacing corset situation. Because thanks for perpetuating that, Pellon. And one of the most important things to remember is that each era shows different techniques. The information that you would get, say, from the Singer Illustrated Dressmaking Guide from 1941 is definitely going to be vastly different from the McCall's Step-by-Step Sewing Book from 1967. So it really depends on what details you're looking to recreate. Some books deal better with the absolute nitty-gritty. For that, I would definitely go with Vogue Dressmaking because the pattern changes that they show you in the very back as to how to fit it better to your body have already opened my eyes as to how poorly I can do that. Have done that. Whatever. And really the most important is availability. Let's say that you really want to find the Better Dressmaking Guide from Ruth Wythe Spears. I will say this one is definitely more challenging, not impossible, but more challenging to find. Then let's say, the 1955 Singer Sewing Skills Reference Book, of which I have two. This one should really cost you no more than about $10 to get you that sewing reference that you're looking for a 1950s pattern. The other part of availability is really, is it available in a paper copy or is it available in a digital copy? I find digital copies to be really helpful for those that have highly sensitive allergies or that don't really feel like paying for shipping. If you prefer and can use a digital copy, I actually do advise getting one of those, because those are going to be cheaper on the whole. They're going to be with you forever, because as long as you have your computer, you can't possibly lose it. Huzzah! Or your child can't color in it like mine likes to do, which is why I hide them now. And that's why I really do enjoy digital copies as they are available. Now, is every single book available in a digital copy? No, absolutely not. Due to copyright issues here in the United States, that's not always possible. But there are definitely some on archive.org, and I have some that I have personally made as well that are well out of copyright because, well, the companies are so old that they have no longer in business. If you're interested in any of the ones that I have, I'll make sure to link my shop down below so that you can go see if I have a vintage sewing book for you. But Stephanie, that doesn't answer the question of how do I pick which one out of all of these books? Here are some guidelines for you. First up, what era of pattern are you looking to recreate? And do you care to replicate the actual finishes from the time frame? If you have a 1960s pattern and would like 1960s finishes, you need to match up those two columns. If you aren't particularly pressed to do absolutely correct sewing skills, then I would honestly say that a modern book might be just fine for you. Because if you're not looking to exactly replicate this specific 1953 style, then don't stress yourself out trying to find a vintage one. But if you're like me, and weird, and love old paper way more than is probably acceptable, then I would absolutely say either come over to my shop, go to Etsy, go to eBay, and just type in vintage sewing book, and the era that you're looking for. Because if you're looking for a 1940s sewing book, believe it or not, there are quite a few that are right around $10. Now, however, I always advise making sure that you read the description fully. Do they tell you what's inside? Do they show you a shot of the table of contents? If they don't do either of those things, always ask. Because if you don't ask, you could end up with something like Smart Sewing, which, while it is a fantastic reference guide, it's actually just patterns. That's what's inside here. There and some pattern cover art. That's really what you're getting. So this doesn't have a whole lot of specific detail. It does have lots of amazing patterns that you can make, but it's not a how-to sew book. Whereas things like the Singer Illustrated Dressmaking Guide from 1941 absolutely is a how-to guide. But what if I'm a beginner and I'm just really starting out? I would say borrow a copy from your local library of a modern sewing book, just to sort of really read through it and kind of get an idea of what the basics are of sewing. Or you can look it up on YouTube, also an option. And then if you go, well, this modern book really isn't for me, I don't really like it, and I really want to stay true to the era, then try and find one of the hardback or really thick step-by-step guides from the era that you're looking for. Because those are going to have much more information than a smaller pamphlet like the Singer Illustrated Guide, because this assumes you have a lot of knowledge. This assumes that you're still really learning. The last thing that I really do make sure and stress that you really look at is going to be your skill level. There is no judgment about where you are in your sewing journey, but doing an honest self-assessment will help you choose the best vintage sewing book for you. And make sure that when you're assessing your skill level, you decide whether or not you want to up level or if you just want to maintain. Because I will say that any Vogue dressmaking book is absolutely going to make you up level whether you like it or not, because there's so much information in these books. Whereas if you're really just looking to maintain and stay in the appropriate era, some of the Singer books are perfectly fine for what you're looking for. I really hope that this helped you out today. If it did, do make sure that you're clicking the like button down below, making sure to subscribe for future videos, tips, tricks, thrifting, sewing, shenanigans. We do a lot of those here. And making sure you're turning on the bell icon so you never miss an upload from me. I really hope you have a wonderful day, and stay beautiful, friends. We'll see y'all next time. Okay, shake it off, Stephanie. Shake it off. You're fine. It's 1:14. You still have a half hour. Sewing books have really been a way to capture imagination, information. So what I'm going to go going through today is I'm going to be showing you some of my favorite sewing books, and I'm going to be giving you... Let's say that you really want to find the Vogue. Because without that information, you could possibly be ending up with something. I put my phone on it. But Stephanie, aren't vintage sewing books better than modern day sewing books? Well, that's sort of debatable. It depends on your skill level. Now, we're not going to go there.